Well, welcome. You're listening to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Bruce MacGowan, who is not here right now, but he will be in the second segment. Let's see, he's a longtime sports radio personality. Today's show is going to be fun because we're actually going to have two guests. Our first guest is going to be Mike Williamsen to discuss youth sports. And later on in the show, we're going to have Ashley Hunter to talk about fit kids. So it's all about the kids today, as they say. At each commercial break, we're going to ask a sports trivia question. Today's theme is just going to be general sports. You can listen to Sports Econ 101 on iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Sports Byline USA, CRN, and many other hundreds of stations across the country. Let's see. Mike, before we get into the essence, let's tell the audience what we're going to talk about in the next segment.
Well, it's going to be about kids' sports.
Okay.
You know, kids are important. They're going to be our Social Security payment
Yeah.
sources in some years to come.
I've already told my kids that. I said, start working now. I don't care if you're 3 years old. Start working now. Put it into my Social Security.
Well, a couple of things I like about sports, of course, are the obvious, the fun that they have, the joy, the teamwork, or all that stuff, and try to make it fun.
There he is, Mr.
Hey, how
Bruce.
you doing?
Good.
Hey, Bruce. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Sorry I'm late.
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, and Bruce MacGowan showed up. How are you, my friend?
Wide awake after getting home late from these Warrior playoff games. It's been a lot of fun.
I was probably still awake, maybe.
Yeah.
I hope
Okay.
the Warriors are still awake.
Yeah, after game 4, it'll be challenging.
Yeah, it will be.
All right, so in the studio, we have Mike Williamsen. Now, Mike, I know you're a real estate broker, but
This is a lot more fun.
This is a lot more fun. Okay, but today we're talking about youth sports. Give us your background as to why you're here about talking about youth sports.
Well, the big answer is why I got into youth sports.
Okay.
It started with my wife. She was nagging at me, going, "Well, Mike, why do you waste so much time coaching and writing and doing all this stuff with the kids' baseball?" And I looked at her and I said, "Laura, everything you love about me, I got playing baseball as a kid."
Yeah. And by the way, you got two baseball
Yeah.
fans here.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So then she goes, "Well, why come you're such a jerk?" And I go, "Well, I've been selling real estate in Wayne County for 25 years." And so I started thinking, I started thinking about it, and I had been coaching and played for many, many years. 3 sports through high school, and I thought, well, what is it that really is the essence I can give back? And sports did me a lot of favors,
Okay.
a lot of opportunities, and I wanted to give something back, and I broke it down to self-esteem.
Yeah.
So
I can see that.
On LinkedIn, I'm kind of known as putting the word self back in self-esteem through sports.
Oh, cool. Okay. So, we're here specifically talking about youth sports, and what are the obstacles that you're finding in youth sports?
I'd break it down into, well, first it's, of course, coaches, parents, first the kids themselves. There's four components that are actually mismatching with
Okay.
their objectives and goals. You got the kids, you got the parents, you got the coaches, and then the game itself is changing a lot in the kids.
And I guess it doesn't matter what game, right? Be it baseball or
Yeah,
soccer.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I know just recently, in the last few years, they've had games where they've called them silent games. I understand about not jeering anybody, but they won't even let you clap.
Oh, I've never heard this.
Yeah, no,
Wow.
like it's
Wow.
completely silent. I'm thinking, what are we at a morgue?
Well, the kids are supposed to have fun. That's the main thing. Learn lessons, but I would think the most important thing is to get the kids out, get them healthy, and let them have some fun, because being a kid should be fun. I think you would agree.
Actually, there's a definition of the word play out there. It's
Yeah.
called a voluntary action for no purpose or outcome or something like
Yeah.
that.
But how many times do you see, kids who have, we'll just call them for all intents and purposes, bad coaches, and it just turned the kids off to the sport, maybe that specific sport, or maybe just sports in general.
That's exactly how I started writing the book. I just wrote, we played baseball. After years of playing a couple sports, 3 sports, it was like at year 6, my son ran into one of those real nasty coaches that we all run into. And that's the rarity. They're not all nasty. A lot of them are good people out to trying to do well.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because my son actually, when T-ball is what they now call it, right, the very, very beginning part, and he actually had a really good coach, but there was a coach who coached another team, And I mean, we're talking about dealing with kids who are 5 and 6 years old, right? So their attention span isn't that great. So the coach, this guy is actually like yelling at these kids, "Stop looking for gophers!" And you know what I mean. And this guy was like a real hard person, if you know what I mean. And a bunch of us who were on our team, our parents going, "Man, we would not let." I'm pretty competitive, but I wouldn't let my kid play for a coach.
That might work in the military, huh?
Yeah,
drill sergeant in the Marines, that might get their attention. I don't know.
Stupid, get down for a ground ball. Don't let it go between your legs.
Give me 12. Give me 12 on the ground.
12.
No. Yeah. Well, that's a challenge. I mean, there's a real psychology to dealing with kids because, as you mentioned, I mean, I would think that's the fun part though too, because the kids are full of wonder and they're open-minded and they want to learn and they want to have fun, and so it's just kind of go with the flow. It's like when I go surfing, go with the waves.
Yeah.
You have really no choice.
Yeah, that's right.
You can't like, yell and scream at the waves, dude.
Yeah, that's right.
He's tried, believe me, he's tried.
I yell in frustration when one of them throws me down. Yeah.
I'll get you.
I'll get you next time. Yeah. No, it's fun to think about youth sports today because they are so much different. I mean, more organized, and the parents seem to be more involved. When I was a kid, and when you were a kid, and Edward, we used to kind of run our own show. I mean, we'd go out and you just don't see that anymore, do you?
That's something that's really missing, and I think sadly, because it's become more corporate, more commercialized. Travel ball, people spend $10,000 a year on travel ball for a kid that doesn't even like baseball.
I don't get that.
My daughter was very good at softball, but when we looked at like just the schedule of travel ball, forget the money side of it. It was just
60 games a year.
I mean, it was just you couldn't do any vacation during the summer.
Yeah.
And I mean, it literally takes over your life. And I mean, you're talking like travel ball. I mean, it's real travel. Some of it's like you have to take an airplane.
They're drafting them from out of state. Kids are flying from California, Florida to play on 2 teams.
Is that right?
Wow.
That I hadn't heard yet.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Like what, 12, 14 years old?
Yeah. No. Exactly. And it's fine. I mean, some of these kids are really pretty phenomenal.
Here's something that's going to scare you. It's gotten so bad, Tommy John's.
Yeah,
Tommy John's
Tommy
surgery, arm surgery.
Don't tell me they're doing that on the kids.
12-year-old boys. There's an epidemic on Tommy John surgeries amongst 12-year-old boys. Now, here's what's really sick. It's voluntary. It's not because they're breaking these kids at 12 years old. They're trying to make their arms stronger so they can pitch better with Tommy John surgery.
That's insane.
Oh my gosh! Now that is, I had not heard that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always think of this. There was a guy named Todd Marinovich. You guys might remember,
sure.
And he burned out really quickly. His dad was a pretty good NFL player, and his dad turned this kid into sort of an automaton. I'm gonna turn him into a professional athlete. At 12 years old, he had him on diets. The kid could never have any sugar. He could never. When he went to a birthday party, they gave him a cake, and then they took it away and gave it to all his friends. He couldn't have any.
Oh,
so is it a wonder that Todd Marinovich had all sorts of problems later on, washed out of sports, and really went through quite a trauma? I don't think he's doing too badly today, but I mean that's the kind of result that you get from a parent or a group of people spending too much time
Yeah, you're right. You gotta let kids be kids.
Yeah.
Do you remember Dennis the Menace, the
Sure.
TV show Jay North?
Yeah.
Apparently, because he was the star of the show. Apparently, his aunt was in charge of him. I don't know what happened with his parents, and she basically kept him in a bubble away from all the other kids. He wasn't allowed to play with all the other kids and all this stuff and treat him and he got really messed up. I mean, these parents don't realize these kids are not robots.
No.
And what they're missing is that free play time, like we're talking about, just making the game up. That's where creativity comes from.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Good point. Good point.
Resources, communication with your friends, and learning how to put things together.
My best memories were on the side of our house. We had the big garage wall, like on the side though of the garage, and we played stickball every single day for hours. And we would make up our own rules specifically about because you'd hit it against the wall, and if it bounced once, it was such and such, and in fact, if it went over our fence, you had to quickly jump the fence and get it from the roof that was going to fall off. I mean, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
But again, there were no adults.
No adults.
We didn't need adult supervision for that kind of stuff.
Well, and you learn responsibility that way too, don't you?
Yeah. Now Bruce, you probably know better than me, but I understand that the Dominican Republic puts out more professional baseball players than just
Yes,
about anybody.
they do.
And they start with sticks and cans in
Yeah.
the streets.
Oh, yeah.
Until MLB comes down and drafts them at 12 years old.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Breaks their arms,
that
you know?
country is absolutely incredible in the number of pro athletes, pro baseball players they produce.
But again, you know, you look at Dominican Republic, they're, you know, I don't know how
Extremely
good their
poor.
economy, yeah, their economy's not
Extremely
very good,
poor,
so
yeah, yeah.
it's like their only escape. Tell you what, guys, we're going to go to our first commercial break here, or first trivia break. Let's see, we are talking general sports here, and what boxer holds the record for most career knockouts?
Ah, good one.
That's our
Yeah.
trivia question, all right? Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan and our special guest, Mike Williamson. First trivia question, what boxer holds the record for most career knockouts?
You know, I'm going to take a guess. I don't know if Mike has an idea. It's got to be either Joe Louis or Rocky Marciano. I know Rocky Marciano was undefeated, but I'm going to say Joe Louis.
No? You have heard of this boxer, though.
Well, I've got a guess, but I think
Go ahead.
his record for knockouts is in the bar after the fight.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson?
Yeah, no, that
Is
doesn't count.
No?
Archie Moore.
Archie Moore.
Yeah, in fact, if I remember
Whoa.
correctly, he's one of the
Yeah.
few guys who was in a couple of different weight classes. And
Yeah,
was a heavyweight.
bounced around a little
Yeah,
bit.
when he got
Yeah.
to the heavyweights, though, it was just a little bit too hard.
Kind of
for him.
sad. Boxing is just not the same sport. I mean, there's some great athletes, but it's too stratified now, and they've ruined it. I think they really
That's,
have.
that's why you got to go to Ultimate Fighting,
Oh, jeez.
especially with the women.
No, thanks. No, that's like the modern gladiators. I think that's. Yeah, I don't want to get into that.
No, I know
commentary
it's
about that.
that's the end of a civilization.
Yeah,
when you have
no,
more
I mean,
people being
that's-
spectators of blood sports like
It's
that.
reflective of a society we're living in.
Yeah,
I just don't find it. I don't even find it entertaining.
Well, even hockey. I mean, they were
Yeah.
the old line of, hey, if I want to go see a good fight, I'll go to a hockey match.
Exactly, that's right. Why
Yeah.
don't we just publicize public hangings like the old days?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's what I thought about OJ. You know, put it on public television and let people register. If they can sign in, pay a pay-per-view, and if they log in enough hours, they can be on the jury.
Yeah.
That's a jury of his peers, you know, reviewers.
You know, the funny thing, not to get off on a tangent about this, but the funny thing is I think we're actually a less violent world than we were. It's just that we're more, all this stuff is more accessible.
That's
with,
true.
With the
Social
instant,
media and
social
stuff.
media,
Yeah.
instant communication.
I get it on Facebook before I hear the news.
God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's good. That's a good point. So, Mike Williamson, we're talking about youth sports here, and I got a question for you about these trophies that kids get for participation. Which there was a commercial not too long ago where this the father is the father of the kids team who won, and he looks at the trophy and it says participation. He goes, "What?" And he rips off the label, and then he just takes a Sharpie and he says champions. I don't know if you remember that one. It came out about 2 years ago.
Oh, man.
Okay, when I was a kid, I mean, they didn't give out anything other than first place.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of hard, but you know, I mean, if you weren't the best, you got nothing.
That's
Well-
true. When I was a kid, I never got a championship trophy till I coached my son's team.
Oh.
And we're state champs in baseball twice, state champs in football twice.
Okay.
You know, just those Eastern Washington hormones growing in
Oh,
those
yeah.
60s kids, you
Sure,
know.
but did they give anything for second, third, or fourth place
Nothing. We didn't get ribbons,
participation?
we didn't get a plaque.
When did that? I mean, it seems like it started like about 25 years ago or
I
something.
think it was longer than that even.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
I guess you know
I
what?
don't
Because
know.
I didn't have kids more than 25 years
Yeah,
ago.
there you go. That's a different world. It's a
Yeah,
different world.
I wonder who came up with that.
Well, on the other hand, I can argue for it because having coached 6-year-old kids, half the battle is getting them to just show up.
True.
So for them to get to show up for us all the practices and the whole season, participation, just showing up, they should get a trophy. You should give a trophy for the parents. You know?
Yeah, who show up. Yeah,
And
you know what it reminds me of is, you know, when you watch the Special Olympics, the participants, they almost don't really care who wins. They just want to go out there, have fun, and they support each other. So I can definitely see part of that with the participation, but do they still at least give out first place and second place trophies?
Yeah, but then as the kids get older, I'd say like 10, 12, then the competition starts becoming,
Yeah.
they're not just up there for fun and hot dogs and hanging out with their friends. They're the thrill of the game, you know, the agony of defeat, the thrill of victory. You know,
Well, you know, what's really funny is I never was the head coach, but I was always like an assistant coach to my daughter's softball teams. And when she was, 12 and 13, 14, what I found amazing was us coaches were more angst than the kids. I mean, they were competitive, they had fun, but I mean, it's almost like, don't don't you realize this is the bottom of the 7th inning? Because they only play 7 innings, right?
I never understand it. Let the the parents sometimes get more wrapped up in it than the kids.
Well,
I mean, I don't.
Don't you watch professional baseball?
Yeah.
Don't you get wrapped up? I mean, are you playing on the field?
Well, actually,
No,
I
but,
don't.
you know.
I don't. I mean,
Really?
you can't afford to if you do what I do. You
Well,
have
okay.
to kind of pull away from that. You
Yeah,
have to
that's
just enjoy
true.
the game. Just enjoy the game. Like, for instance, the teams I followed when I was a kid, I still follow them, but if they lose, it's no big deal. Just have fun.
Well, true. No. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm competitive, but if I lose, I lose.
Yeah.
But I want to really try hard.
Oh, sure. There's
And
nothing wrong with that.
Right, and
That's
so
a good idea. You want to give it your best.
Yeah, and I tell you, I don't know how often you watch girls softball. I'm not talking at the college level. For some reason it's more boring because pitchers are so good that you don't really get that much excitement that often. But in the younger, be it high school or junior high or whatever. I mean, especially in the high school ones, it's amazing how exciting these games can be. And I think it's more just the excitement of it rather than yelling at kids because they're doing something wrong. You just got to get into the excitement of it.
Yeah.
Well, to back up a second, that learning about defeat, that's one of the big things that kids learn in sports. That hands it to them. And that's a big skill. Like we played sports, that's where I learned it.
Yeah.
I learned about losing, getting back up, and
But again, if you get a participation trophy and you know ahead of time, whether or not I win or lose, I'm going to get some kind of a trophy, that kind of goes against that, doesn't it?
we're going to go in circles on that.
Yeah, it's true.
As right as we should.
Somebody should come up with the answer of what you
Yeah.
really got. Like either the death penalty if you lose or no.
Well, it should be staggered. I mean, a couple of years of participation, but it's great. Nothing better to pursue a championship, be on a team,
Yeah.
pursuing that championship, going for it, because that's all they can think about, and that's a great experience for their future life when they're going for that big business deal or
Sure.
that big interview.
Yeah,
And
I mean, well, even in professional sports, I mean, or even like at the college level, when they make it to the Final Four, they get to the championship, and then they lose. I mean, these guys, emotional breakdown. I mean, I don't mean like put them in a loony bin, but to where they'll cry.
Well,
Yeah.
Bruce, you might disagree, but I talk to pro sports players and stuff, and they're still kind of really big kids.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sure.
No question.
Because they're
Yeah.
6 years old, they grabbed a basketball and never let go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now they come out and they lose their contract, and they don't know what to do with the rest of their life.
Yeah. Of course, they're making the guys at the top are making such. Well, average baseball player makes about $3 million a year now. If you can't make
Is
it,
that right?
yeah. If you can't make it on $3 million a year, I mean, something must.
Well,
I mean,
that's MLB level.
Yeah,
You got 4,000
Oh,
players
sure.
at minor league are
Sure.
making $800 a month
that's true.
during the
If they're
season.
lucky.
That's
Yeah.
true. It is a small percentage, and we do have a tendency to overhype that. I think.
Well, here in Marin, we have an international independent league, and we've had Mike Shapiro on from the San Rafael Pacifics, and those guys only get paid. I mean, some of them don't get paid.
600 or 700. Yeah.
Yeah,
And they get room and board and
Yeah, and you
free
got to
food.
house
little
them
spending
up.
money. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're doing it for the love of the game. They know it's their last sort of chance to do something. So, yeah.
I used to love playing softball as an adult.
Sure.
And then again, I don't even know. I guess maybe we did get probably a trophy if we won. I don't even remember now. I think it was just the idea of just being the best team in the league.
Yeah.
The excitement of it.
Yeah, I'd like to see more intramural kind of sports going for kids, because now it's all, they get weeded out and they stop playing at 12 years old, 10 years old.
Yeah.
They don't make that draft of that little league team. They're done.
Yeah, it's not
Well,
good.
and they actually they did it. When my son was 12 years old, and that was 14 years ago, they did have a draft for the major.
yeah.
They called them the major leagues there, and I'm looking at this, and because people these coaches come out during the tryouts and they're taking notes and all this stuff, and this kid he looks like he
Well,
could be
they
a
got
good center
scouting
fielder.
reports from last year.
Yeah,
They keep track of it, yeah.
it's amazing. Are you coaching now?
Well, I tried to get out of it.
Yeah.
When my son stopped playing, it was kind of like, well, why should I coach
Yeah.
him? I don't want to be like some weird,
Oh,
most
yeah,
most
yeah.
most kids' sports are coached by parents.
Sure.
Which is kind of sad, but kind of fun. I did it just to spend time with my son. Well, I got a call, maybe 6 months ago, from a school, and they said, "Hey, we hear you coached." And I go, "What do you want to know?"
Yeah,
Well,
really.
can you come up and help us? We're starting a new basketball league. Can you
Oh.
come and help us? And I go, "No, I don't want to. I don't really want to." Well, can you just show up for the coaches' orientation and maybe give them some of your tips? I said, "Okay, I'll do that." Right. So I show up, and the coach, the head coach, the administrator comes out. Well, Mike, are you going to come in? Are you going to coach for us? I go, no, I'm not going to do it. Yeah. And he goes through his speech, and it's a beautiful speech. And he comes, are you going to coach? And I go, no. Well, why not? Because of the parents. I'm almost like you.
Yeah.
I was also an assistant coach. I didn't want to deal with the parents.
Yeah.
You know, like coaches swearing in the parking lots and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And he goes, well, Mike, you know, our school here is a little different. I mean, a lot of our kids, their dad's in jail, their mom's in rehab. Kids are in child protective services and stuff like that. And
sort of like the movie Hardball.
Yeah.
We need you.
Wow.
Our latest guest on the show just showed up on the phone.
Yes, we've been talking to Mike Williamsen about youth sports, and we've got Ashley Hunter, who runs a nonprofit sports program for kids in the San Francisco Bay Area, and it's a wonderful program. It works with kids that are at-risk kids in the Bay Area, and I want Ashley to tell us a little bit about it. And she's a former athlete. She played college sports, played a lot of sports like Mike here, and got into it sort of, I guess, in a way, almost by accident, Ashley, because you were in investment banking?
I was, yeah. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I did come out to San Francisco to do investment banking back in '98 from the first bubble. And once I completed my 2 years there, I went in a very different direction. And my passions have always been health and kids. And so putting those together with the kids is really exciting for me. We've been around for about 7.5 years, and it did start from a really simple idea of helping kids play sports. I read this article about kids in my local community. I live in Menlo Park, and kids 5 miles from where I live in East Palo Alto are having a hard time playing youth sports because they're really expensive. And I thought I can do something about this. It's just such an important part of every kid's healthy development to be involved in sports and physical activity that I really think I can do something here. And so I started going over to a few schools in after-school hours in East Palo Alto and coaching kids in sports and different ways to be active. And that's what Fit Kids is all about, just helping kids be active, building fitness skills and motor skills, and giving kids an opportunity that they're otherwise not finding.
Yeah, for the national audience, East Palo Alto is an area that's, underprivileged, I guess is a good way of putting it. Okay. And interestingly enough, our other guest here, we usually don't have two guests on, but it worked out pretty well because we're talking about youth sports. Mike Williamsen, you're actually doing a sports equipment drive, aren't you?
Yeah, about every couple of years. I round up a bunch of sports equipment and give it to organizations like yours.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to get you two hooked up there.
Yeah.
Now the name of the organization, Ashley, is Fit Kids?
Yes, Fit Kids.
And you've got some professional athletes that are helping out. Ronnie Lott, former 49er, is one of the folks, and I think you've hooked up with some other people as well.
Yeah, we have a great honorary board, and those are people involved in the professional sports world who are willing to lend their name to our website as part of our honorary board. And it's a bunch of people like Ronnie Lott and Joe Staley, who's currently with the Niners, Ted Robinson, Steve Baker, Mindy Bach. So, we've got a bunch of great people involved and endorsing Fit Kids and what we're doing.
That sounds great. And one of the things I love about this organization is that you're getting kids that are, as you mentioned, at-risk kids who otherwise would fall through the cracks, kind of getting them to do something that might give them a little hope and might give them on the straight and narrow and focused, which is so important at that age. It's 7, 8, 9, 10.
Absolutely. I really think that sports are life-changing for anybody who's involved, not just to get to the professional level, but just playing any kind of youth sports at school or anything. And I think for the kids we're working with at Fit Kids, our program in sports can be life-saving because you're exactly right. It keeps them on the straight and narrow and involved in something really positive and beneficial. And we know that kids who are involved in sports are more likely to graduate high school. They do better in school. They have certain academic standards that they're expected to meet to stay on the team. They have good relationships with their coaches who become positive role models. And just life outcomes are generally better for kids who've been involved in sports.
Yeah, we've talked about this before on the show, that there are certain sports that are harder to get people together, like a baseball. You pretty much have to have close to 9 kids. I mean, we used to do less, with less people, but then you have to find a ball field, and bats, gloves, and balls can get kind of expensive. But a basketball is pretty easy, or a soccer ball. I'm trying to think of what other sports.
It's funny. Tennis you always have this view of tennis being sort of an elite sport. But if you find a court, there's some public courts, and kids It's amazing. I know you played tennis, and I would think kids, have a little more access to tennis than we'd think.
Yeah, courts, if you can find the courts, that is often the toughest, especially in some of the underserved communities where they have limited outdoor space for parks and recreational use. The tennis courts sometimes can be hard to find, but that's a great sport. And I love seeing kids playing tennis. And with Fit Kids, we make it really easy because we bring all of the equipment with us when we teach our classes.
That's great.
The kids don't need anything. They don't need to go anywhere or have anything. We bring everything and we show up to them.
And is it just strictly after school, or is it on weekends?
No, it's after school and during the school day. So in some of the programs where we send coaches, it's just after school. And then a lot of our partners throughout the Bay Area, down in LA and in Las Vegas, we train the staff at schools to use Fit Kids so they can use it during the school day as an activity at recess, and they can also use it in after school hours.
Well, now you guys have a website, so if anybody's out there interested in looking at this sort of thing, where do you go?
Fitkids.org.
Wow, okay.
That's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Do you also talk about nutrition at all? Or is it just strictly the sporting part?
Nutrition is definitely something that we think a lot about. It certainly goes hand in hand with physical activity to truly live a healthy life. But it's a really big area, and it's a tough one to solve. So we give the kids simple tips in our classes, but we don't go much beyond that because some of the kids that we're working with, they're struggling to just put food on the table, and we don't want to get too deep into what exactly that food should be. So we really focus on physical activity and then simple tips like drink water, not juice.
I was curious, can you personalize this a little bit? And maybe there's a kid out there that you worked with who came from a rough background and kind of really had a chance to sort of mentor or at least watch develop through this program. Is there anybody in particular or any story you can tell us?
Well, we have some great quotes and, of course, a lot of pictures. You'll find them on our website. And our coaches often have great stories of kids who started out a little bit shy. They didn't have a lot of confidence in their physical abilities. And through the games and activities that our program puts them through, these kids are building confidence. They're learning to be leaders, helping out the coaches. They're building physical skills like strength and agility, motor skills like running, kicking, and throwing. And they finish the school year totally different kids. And we all think of physical activity as having great physical benefits. Obviously, it keeps you healthy, it helps reduce the risk of obesity, but there's incredible social and emotional benefits and academic benefits. And some of those things that I love seeing the most in the kids, the life-changingness of our program.
Well, a lot of times just the endorphins you get from...
Absolutely. Yeah, for the kids we're working with who, again, have big problems, like what food is going to be on the table, what am I going to have as a roof over my head tonight? We give them an hour of physical activity where they get to forget their problems, just be a kid, be out on the field with their classmates and teammates, and get all of the great endorphins that come from being active.
And how long has Fit Kids been around?
Since 2011, so just about 7.5 years.
Okay. Well, so you've seen some of the kids, go through high school.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have any of them come back and thanked you, or just talked about the impact?
Not yet. They haven't come to us to thank them, but last fall we were out at one of our sites, and there were some middle school kids who were out running around playing soccer, and the site director at that school said those were all Fit Kids kids, and I loved seeing them out playing sports.
That's great. Well, go ahead.
Well, you guys both mentioned endorphins, and there's a brain hormone called dopamine that gives that feeling of satisfaction. And sports are great for it because they got to work for it. They got to do it themselves. They got to practice, and they're facing their fears. There's all these life skills they develop. But on the other hand, kids are relying like Facebook. If someone likes their post on Facebook, that gives them a little bump in dopamine.
Yeah. Well, it's so much better, isn't it, that they're getting that outlet on the field rather than in front of a screen. I mean, I think that's the key, is to get them active, right, Trace? Right, Ashley?
Absolutely. Another really cool thing about sports is it's uniting. It doesn't matter where you're from or what you look like. When you're out on the field together, you're a team, and you're there to support each other. And I love that kind of life lesson about sports too.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're doing some great things there. Where do you see this going in the future? Are you just going to keep trying to do what you're doing, or are you going to,
We're growing and expanding. We are focusing that growth in the Bay Area. There's a lot of need here, so we're excited to continue meeting the need in the Bay Area, which is where we're based. We're also increasing our presence in LA. We got funding last year from the Dodgers for some programs in LA, and we want to grow our presence down there. And then we have some programs in Vegas also funded by United Healthcare. And we're excited to pursue that relationship and provide fit kids where their philanthropy is focused.
The thing I love about this is it's not political. It's like nobody's going to say this is a bad thing. You know, there's some things you can look at and you go, well, some people might be for it, some people might be against it. I don't know anybody would be against
well,
this.
Here, I'll tell you, there's a movie out of East Bay called From Ghost Town to Havana, about a coach who basically took some kids off the street and put them in their backyard and put a Babe Ruth team together and joined the league, and he saved their lives. I mean, literally saved their lives. But a lot of the gangsters rebelled against that because they wanted them, these kids, took these kids out of their pockets.
Yeah.
So just to throw.
Well, they don't count when I say nobody would be against it. You know.
Okay. Well, they did when they're shooting at your kids.
Well, that's true. It's the same thing. It's like when some of these kids, underprivileged ones, want to go for a college education, and these other people want to just keep them down.
Yeah.
It's along the same lines. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for joining us on this segment of Sports Econ 101. Yeah. Well, so again, why don't you give out the website one more time?
It's fitkids.org.
All right, you ready? Here's our thoughts for the day. When one door When one door of happiness closes, another opens. But often we look so long at the closed door that we do not see the one that has been opened for us. You know who said that?
No.
Helen Keller.
Oh.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And when you talk, you are only repeating what you already know. But if you listen, you may learn something new. Wait, what was that? I wasn't listening. All right, tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective. We'll also be asking more sports trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Good night, America.
So long. Good, that's it, guys.